Well, if this isn't deja vu all over again, that seems to be the most common phrase these days. We haven't been to Six-Cedar Lane in, I think, about 4 years, right, Big John Bacon?
That sure is right. It was 6 years ago. That was the 50th year of the invasion of Europe.
And there was a lot of publicity about that on all the networks, all the local radio and television stations. Hometown Cable with Calvin Castine and the late Bob Venn did a show with you guys up in Champlain, I remember.
We sure did. It was a super show.
Because you have 50 million memories about that time in your life.
That many,
I wonder why so many.
Well, all the places I've been and everything I've done, it all adds up to the big thing that I was at the right age and I volunteered to do what I did, and I'm very glad I did. And now that I look back, this 54 years ago, yes, there's some things that have faded, but I still remember a whole lot.
And here we are, back again for a specific reason. First of all, it's nice to renew memories with John and Marion, who's hiding in the garage over there. They're getting a new bay window put in here. That's another product of the ice storm, right, John?
That's right.
God.
I was very lucky when the ice storm came. I was in Daytona Beach. So
come on.
And my neighbor, Harry Duckworth, took a picture of this street, and I've seen a lot of battle zones in my life. But Cedar Lane here looked like a battle zone with all the ice and collapsed trees and all that stuff. It was horrible, but all I said to myself, I'm glad I'm in Daytona Beach.
Oh boy! So you came back to see it all after it was being cleaned up?
Oh,
huh?
It was all cleaned up when I get back, and but as you just stated, the bay window there, the ice got into that, and so that's being replaced now, and so everything is just great. It's all coming out in the wash, they say.
This is a nice, quiet street here in Plattsburgh off Cumberland Avenue. For those people who may be viewing our little corner from outside the area, it's not far from a landmark. The old Elks Club building is right over here, and if John had the same arm he had when he was 22 years old, he could throw a stone over in Lake Champlain from here. It's a nice spot to live and raise a family. You've been down here for a couple of years, John.
I've been here 20 years now.
Yeah, it's a nice spot. This isn't what the uniform that John puts on every morning when he gets up, you know. He does it for special occasions, and there's a very good reason why we came back today, not just to renew those acquaintances I mentioned a few moments ago, but to talk about a movie that is taking the cinema world by storm. It's amazing. Saving Private Ryan. I've purposely not gone to see the movie because I didn't want to spoil your opinion for this little interview today, but you did see the movie.
Yes, I saw the movie last Friday night.
And the best part of it is, John, you were there.
Yes, I was there. The movie, the way I classify it, it's a very good movie. The fact that it brings out the realistics of what us guys did 54 years ago, of how we got our freedom, how we have our freedom today, because there were people in our world at that time, Mr. Hitler and Mr. Tojo, that wanted a piece of the good old United States. They probably wanted it all, but as the saying goes, way back then, after Pearl Harbor and that, they woke up a sleeping giant. The patriotism of this country at that time was fantastic. And so to speak about myself and where I was, of course I volunteered to be in the airborne and be a paratrooper.
You were from Ogdensburg, right?
Sure was. I was born in Ogdensburg and lived there all my life and worked there. And then 20 years ago I moved here to Plattsburgh. That's another story.
There are lots of stories.
But the movie itself, yes, it was good. What I just said, it brings back a lot of memories and things like that. But these memories don't haunt me because I've seen all that blood before. It doesn't bother me a bit. I guess there's some people it does, but it doesn't bother me. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it. Of course, physically, it's probably a little bit impossible. Quite a lot impossible.
Now that you're a couple of days over 60, right?
I passed 60 16 years ago.
You didn't have to say that, but
Well,
we could have figured it out, John.
Well, yeah, I put it this way, I have to be this age for everything I've done and every place I've been. And I'm proud to be this age because of what I've done. And back to the movie now. Private Ryan is, of course, the name of the movie. But in real life, this story was based on the fact of 4 brothers from Tonawanda, New York, which is a suburb of Buffalo. And 3 of them perished in World War II. And the one that didn't, which was the youngest of the 4, was Frederick. And they called him Fritz. Well, Fritz happened to be in the same platoon I was in. We were in the same platoon. Pardon me. He was a buck sergeant and I was a staff sergeant. But not only we were sergeants, but we were friends almost right from the beginning, because when we first got to Toccoa, Georgia in late November '42, everybody was a stranger. I'd never seen these guys before, and they never saw me. But Fritz was from New York, and there was a couple other guys from New York, and we kind of buddied up a little bit because we had that in common. And but then Fritz and I really struck it off, and when due time came that they would give us passes to go, that was mostly after basic training, which lasted about 4 months, and we went on pass several times. Yes, he was a good companion. He liked the beer just as well as I
I knew
did.
we'd get to tipping a few before we got through here, Big John Bacon.
But yes, he.
That's how you develop friendships.
It was a friendship then, and then went through the campaign of Normandy. He jumped with us and all that stuff, and so we did our job then. And then, almost at the close of that campaign, he was notified that his brother Bob, who I also knew, he was in a 505 regiment of the 82nd, that he had been killed. So Fritz went to Father Sampson, the regimental priest, and
Father Sam, as you
Father
call
Sam, we called him, one of the greatest men that I've ever known. Not only a chaplain, but as a man and everything. So Father Sam says, of course, he had available was a Jeep, and so they went back to St. Mary Gallice in that area and checking out the cemetery and the grave registrations, and they're looking through it, and they didn't find Robert Nyland, but they found the other brother's name. And Fritz simply said to Father Sam, of course, no, I was not there, but he told Father Sam, who I have talked to him many times, and to Fritz, that there he found out both these brothers were gone. And then shortly after that, somehow, Father Sam found out that the third brother, who was in the Air Force, was shot down over flying the hump in China.
Wow,
missing
in action.
Yeah, missing in action, so presumed dead. Although he wasn't. 2.5 years later, they found him in a prison camp, almost starved to death. But he did make it home, but he has died since then.
Now, I want to interrupt you for just a moment, because we're going to go in and sit down and continue this fascinating story. The reason we're here today is to renew our friendship, but to let you know of a personal connection with the guy who was the basis of that story, Saving Private Ryan. We're going to talk about more comments about the real stuff that happened behind that movie and the life of this very interesting person who now claims Plattsburgh for his home. Our program continues in just a moment. This is John Bacon's Inner Sanctum, inside his home at 6 Cedar Lane in Plattsburgh. What a room you've got here, John. Screaming eagles all over the place.
Well, of course, the Screaming Eagle was the nickname or the motto of the 101st Airborne. We got called the Screaming Eagles from World War II. That's where that originated from.
You got an eagle. Calvin went to sit on a little pillow, and you said, flip that over and take a look. There it was, another eagle.
Yeah, eagles are pretty special. Real live eagles, I've seen a few. We were up on a reunion in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and down on the Wisconsin River, up there with Glenn Johnson and Annie. And that was we saw the real live eagles in the nests and the little ones and all that, and yeah, it brings back a lot of things. I mean, an eagle is a bird. It's a symbol of freedom and of the United States, and this is what the 101st Airborne was trying to do, is make this country a free country, which we helped do.
You know, the 101st Airborne has a rich history, as you know, but many of our viewers may not be aware. And there's even a publication which comes out every once in a while, huh? Look at it right over there, sitting right there down on the side.
Yeah, every 2 months we get a magazine, the Screaming Eagle, and it brings out all the activities that's going on at the current time, and of all many things different. And of course, the one thing that's in there that you don't like to look at is the obituary, because just 2 weeks ago I had a very startling thing told me. My wife and I were in Buffalo to the American Legion State Convention, and it was brought out to the fact then of World War II. There is 1,000 ex-GIs die every day.
Wow, what a startling statistic.
I had to burp on that one, because it's true, but as an individual living here, I never realized it. But if you stop and think, there's 48 states, and how many guys?
50 now, John.
50 now, yes. But how many guys were in the military? How many guys were in the service? And this includes all the branches of the service and everything that made that World War II a success. And when you add that all together, that's a lot of guys. But it was what was told us, that there was 1,000 World War II veterans die every day.
I heard that on one of the national newscasts just the other day, and I suppose that's why, that isn't why we're here, because we expect you to be around for a long, long, long time. You look like you could go out and do it all over again, and I knew you would if you were asked to, John.
Yes, I would. I do it. Only one problem, I do it a lot slower. But
it take you a little while to get to Normandy this time, huh?
Yeah, you talking about my age. Yes, I'm proud that I am 76 and that. But in my family trees, my grandfather went past 91, and my father went past that, and so my objective is I got to beat them both.
Well,
So
might as well go the century mark, right?
well, I've had a few hitches in my get along and things like that.
That's a phrase I haven't heard in a couple of years. My mother's favorite phrase.
It's World War II slowed me down with about 6 different bullet holes through me. That slowed things down a little bit. A couple of years ago, I give all the credit in the world to the Veterans Administration, the VA clinic and the VA hospitals, that in Elizabethtown they found out that I had a cancer. And so
I didn't know that.
yeah, it was but that was taken care of. A doctor here in Plattsburgh, Dr. Hassam, who I think is one of the greatest guys that ever walked or picked up a scalpel, he removed everything, and then I asked him that one favorite question, and do I need any more treatments? And he just simply told me, no, you don't. He says, I had one chance when I was in there, and I took everything I wanted.
That's what you like to hear, right, John?
I took everything I wanted and left you with the rest.
I love it. Listen, let's go back to Saving Private Ryan here. We explained earlier in our broadcast that wasn't his real name. I don't know. Do you have any idea how the book developed and then the movie? Spielberg, we know, is brilliant, and there's a lot of realism in the movie. But how did they get from Sergeant
Nyland.
Fritz, Fred Nyland to Ryan?
That's a question you'd have to ask Spielberg. I can't answer that question. The only thing I know is this the movie Saving Private Ryan is based on the Nyland family, who lost 3 boys in World War II, and of course Fritz, being the youngest, was in my platoon and my company, and also my good friend and buddy during the war and after the war.
But the movie was about him.
I knew about this movie probably a year ago, that it was in the making. But yes, I did know that it was based on that. I knew that then. But not ever seeing the whole show till last Friday night. But I have had several phone calls from Fritz's daughter, Katie, who lives in Anchorage, Alaska. And what she wants or would like to have, and she has been a guest of Mr. Spielberg and all this kind of stuff, and many times, is the recognition that her father deserves. And, of course, I back that all the way myself. I mean, good old Fritz was a great soldier, a great paratrooper, and a great man. After the war, he became a dentist. And so he was a humanitarian. He was just, like I said before, all man.
Let's go back just a little bit in the story. When we were standing outside in front of the flag, you told us that two of his brothers were killed. One was shot down and missing in action.
Yeah.
And doesn't that automatically mean you're on a plane and coming back home?
Yes. Early in World War II, there was 5 Sullivan brothers who were in the Navy, and they were on a ship somewhere in the Pacific, and the ship was sunk, and all 5 boys drowned. So that left the family with nothing. So after that, this is what, I'm not in government laws or anything, but this is what I understand. There was a law passed at that time that if any such thing like this would happen again, and there was a surviving person, they would be sent home to take the pressure off the father and mother. And so this is what happened to the Nyland family. That we were sitting in Normandy. We had been pulled back off the line, or pulled back out of the fighting problem, and we were sitting up near Cherbourg when somebody told Fritz about Bob. And so he was kind of excited, nervous about that. Well, I knew Bob a little bit because he had been over in England before we went to Normandy. He had visited us, and so I got to meet him a couple of times. And so I knew him, like I say, a little bit. But then Fritz went to Father Sampson. And first Father Sampson had a Jeep. And then they went...
Yeah, you told me. Chaplains always had Jeeps,
yeah,
right?
right. Then they went back to St. Mary Glees on the grave registration. And this is when he found out that his other brother, who was a lieutenant, came in on the beach, was also dead. So that meant 2. So now sometime later, I don't know when, but shortly I would say, he found out about the third brother, through Father Sampson, of course. And so then it was a few days, because we were sitting in an area waiting for a ship to go back to England, because we had to go back and get replacements and the fellows that got captured and killed and all that, which was many. We had to get new equipment because that was like, we jumped on June the 6th, and this was like, I think we left England left Normandy to go back to England on the 10th of July. And we were all wearing the same clothes that we jumped with. If there wasn't too good a shape, some didn't have any arms in them, some didn't have any legs. And like people said, when was the last time you took a shower? That was so long ago you forgot. But anyhow, when we got back to England, this is when Father Sam, we were in a new area because we were transferred from where we were to another place, and they had like Tent City, and so I was sitting on the same bunk that Fritz was sitting on when Father Sam came in and said to him, "Fred, you're going home." Fred said, "Oh no, I'm not going home." He said, "I'm staying here with the boys." And this is quote unquote what Father Sampson said. He says, "You could go see General Eisenhower, you can go see President Roosevelt, but you're going home, Fred." And so consequently, he did.
No choice in the matter.
He had no choice in the matter. He went home. And so that was like, at that time right then, this is what I felt, and the rest of the guys in the platoon, or Company H, this old guys, we call us old guys because we had been through one campaign that made us real veterans. But we were glad to see Fritz go home, he was out of it. We knew he was going to be okay. That was great. We were very sorry that his family, his father and mother, had lost 3 boys. We were sorry for that. But the immediate thing was right there was we all knew Fritz. And so I was sitting there within arm's length of him when this happened. And so consequently, a few days later, through Father Sampson's plans and that, he was sent home. And now there's another part of this story after he got home. Do you want me to tell you about that?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to the campaign. You were jumping, and he was coming ashore at that time, or how did that work?
Oh no. Fritz, he jumped with us.
He jumped with
Oh
you.
yeah, he jumped with H Company. We all.
And you came in at advance of Normandy, right?
Yeah, people have said to me many times, "Were you in Normandy on D-Day?" And I'll say, "No, I wasn't. I got there the night before."
Yeah.
But that's a funny one. But
he jumped with you.
oh yeah, Fritz was right there with us, and he was, pardon me, a good soldier. I mean, he followed orders like we all did. And another thing paratroopers have to do, you use a lot of ingenuity, because we're not a big outfit. We're small. We're not a unit that can hold any great area at any time because we don't have the heavy weapons to handle such a thing as that. We're a unit that hits them and run and just keeps the enemy off balance. And but we are strong enough. We can take a village or a city, which took Carentan and things like that. But to stand there and battle with tanks, well, we had some bazookas. Sometimes they were hard to find, but we were not a big, strong outfit. We were fast and lightning, and it was a great bunch of guys. I can't speak anything about any other part of the service except that, because that's all I was. But put it this way, it took us all to win the war. So, and like another thing I've always said, don't forget the guys and ladies back here in the United States that was making this stuff for us.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Now, during that campaign then, he was with you. Now, there are people who talk about the documentary aspect of this movie and how the parts of it seem so real because they tried to recreate what it would look like during that time period. But the actual facts in the movie don't necessarily follow what really happened in history with Nyland, right?
You're right. The movie is a movie. It's made from.
And you understood that when you went to see it.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, because I knew of this movie a year before when it was in the process of being made, and so I went for the curiosity of just how would Hollywood handle such a thing.
Yeah.
And well, I found out it was, like I say, a good movie, very realistic. But the thing was, there never was a ranger unit that came in to get Private Ryan because that didn't happen. It never happened. But they had to make a movie, and it had to be so people would understand it and all this. So, like I say, it's a good movie, but it got off the tracks a little bit of the realistic, what really happened. And then, once again, I'll say, it's based on the Nyland story, and my connection with the whole thing is that Fritz Nyland, the youngest son, him and I were in H Company in the 2nd Platoon. So he was a buck sergeant, and I was a staff sergeant. So it...
So, but now as you sat there and watched the movie, you got to admit, once in a while you say, boy, oh, man, that's realistic.
I simply say, did I do that?
Did I do that? Was I there?
Yeah, but yes, he made the movie very realistic, which is the right thing to do, to show the people what we did. And like watching the movie, people getting killed and like this, I've already been through that. That doesn't bother me. Maybe it bothers some people, but I don't dwell on things like that. I think about it, but I don't sit and get sorrowful over it.
It's tough when you lose your friends, but
right. There's only one.
You lost your friends there, and you've lost a lot of them since then.
But there's only one thing that gets me very sorrowful, is My wife Mary and I have been back to Europe 3 times, is when you see the military cemetery over there, and you see those white crosses. I mean, you see rows and rows and rows. That's when I get a lump, and maybe a little tear. But anyhow, that's when I look at that. That's the price that was paid, and that was a pretty high price. But at the same time, look at what we've got here today. Our freedom we've got. Of course, there's some people that take it for granted. I don't blame them. They weren't in the same places I ever been, and I wasn't in their places either. But this old country right here is the best of all. If this country wasn't so great, why do other people from other countries want to come here? And so,
these are the words of a true patriot. I mean, all you have to do is look around this room. Before Calvin and I leave here today, we're going to have you describe everything in this room, but we understand your patriotism and the way you feel, and the fact that you started this program by saying, I do it again if they ask me to, knows how you feel. But I want to know whether you think this movie has maybe helps to explain a little bit to a younger generation who didn't live through that like you did and like I did, although I never was in the service, whether it helps to explain to them that this was a really powerful time and an important time in American history.
You just said a whole mouthful, Gordy. Yes.
I have a habit of doing that.
Because that World War II, yes, we've had other conflicts and since then and that, but World War II was a turning point. We had like I said before, a couple of fractions of Mr. Hitler and Mr. Tojo. We had to eliminate them, which we did. I have heard many things. No, I never was in the Pacific, not in World War II. That's another story, because I was in Korea for 14 months in the Korean War. But in World War II, when Mr. Truman, the president, said, go for the bomb, and dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yes, that killed a lot of people. I know that. But don't forget, Japan started this thing, and we finished it. But by dropping that bomb, 2 bombs, the many, many American servicemen lives that were saved. That's the way I look at it. And so I think it was a great thing the way the war ended, and of that fact that all the lives it did save. So I've had lots of people talk about Mr. Truman and all this kind of stuff, but, well, I look at it my way. Everybody's got that privilege. That I think he was a great man. And then, of course, when the Korean War came and he eliminated General MacArthur, but then who did he put in General MacArthur's place? Nobody else but an old paratrooper, General Matthew B. Ridgway. And I said,
I knew you'd get to that, John.
Yeah. And so what did he do? There was this thing in Korea, and we're getting off the track a little bit, but I got to talk about another paratrooper.
Hey, we're entitled to ramble. We're old. Go ahead, John.
When MacArthur was there in command, they had a byword, and when the Chinese would hit, they say, let's bug out of here. General Ridgway got there. He says, that word will be eliminated. For every step we take now will be a step forward. And that's the way it was. So I was lucky to be in Korea under both commands, and I saw the change that came by an old paratrooper being a leader.
All right. Now let's get back to the Fritz Nyland story. It's acknowledged that the book and the movie is based on Fred Fritz Nyland and that family. Now, you got out of the service. It was all over. And where did you head? Tonawanda, New York. Tell me about that part of it.
Yes, the war was all over. And, of course, I lived in Ogdensburg, New York. And so was in 58, I went down to see Fritz. And so I did. I think this is quite humorous. I had his address. And so I went to the house, and I rapped on the door, and this lady came to the door, and I said simply, is Mr. Nyland home? She took a second look, and she says, no, he isn't. And she says, you're Big John, aren't you?
She knew who you were, right?
I never met the lady in my life, I didn't know her.
You didn't know
But-
you were coming.
She didn't know I was coming, and nothing. But
Your reputation preceded you, John.
right, because of Fritz and I being great friends. So then she gave me Fritz's office address. I said okay, and so
You didn't know he was a dentist until
no, not then. I didn't know it. So we left home in Tonawanda, drove down into Buffalo, and all I had was an office, a street address. And I drive up, and here's this nice new building, and it says on the outside of it, Dr. Nyland. Of course, there was 4 other dentists in the same building. And I said, Doctor?
EDS.
Yep.
Huh?
So I went in, and so there was a receptionist there. Several patients were sitting around, and I walked up to the receptionist at the desk, and I says, I'd like to see Dr. Nyland. That was hard to get out to say doctor, but she says, do you have an appointment? I says, no, I don't. She says, well, I'm sorry, you can't see Dr. Nyland today. And I says, will you do me a favor? And she says, yes. I says, you go tell Dr. Nyland that John Bacon is here. She wrote my name down, and she went back. And about 30 seconds later, she's coming back
He's coming after me.
right behind her. And he looked at me, he grabbed a hold of me. No, us old paratroopers, we don't shake hands, we hug each other, because every day is a bonus day.
You got that right.
And he turned to her and he says, you have Dr. So-and-so finish my patient and cancel the rest of my appointments for the rest of the day.
I'm out of here.
So that was the first time Fred and I had seen one of this since the war. So we had to talk things all over, and we did. So then, after that, I worked for a General Motors dealership in Ogdensburg, and so he was quite a guy to have his mechanic to go to school and learn, because every year a car comes out, there's something new on it. And so I was the youngest guy working as a mechanic in this business, and so I got sent to Buffalo to General Motors School.
Oh,
Well, of course, I'm on an expense account and all that kind of stuff, which was great. I was getting the knowledge for myself. Like I say, my boss gave me an education. It was a benefit to me. But when I was in Buffalo to the General Motors School, at night, I got out of school about 4:30. Pick up the phone, hey, Fritz, what's for supper? So over I go, and Mary and I, and, you know, I think the last time I was there was like 75 or something like that. Something like that about that time. You know, these 2 little girls, they were getting bigger and all that kind of stuff. But then Fritz moved his practice to Long Island, and we still stayed in touch by the letter and the cards, but I didn't see him again after that. And then
that would have been maybe 70s, huh?
it was in the middle 70s, yeah. But then Fritz died in 83 of natural causes.
Here on Long Island, right?
No, he was in California at that time when he died. Yeah, he moved his business to California. I guess weather conditions or like that. He liked it better than he did Long Island. He maybe wanted, because Long Island is maybe something like Plattsburgh. They get cold winters there too.
Yeah.
So, but when he died, he was in California. Yeah.
I would be very interested in finding out how the concept for the book arose and whether the author actually met him before he died or how he got the story and the concept turned into a movie. And I have to profess my ignorance and education there. I just haven't studied the background. I was too anxious to get over here and talk to you, and I haven't even seen the movie yet, but you can rest assured that I will. Now, let's talk about his daughter up in Anchorage and her quest. What's her name again?
Katie, spelled with a C.
All right. Have you been in contact with her?
Well, yes, many times. A phone call with Katie lasts an hour and a half.
Ah.
Yes, we're very, very great friends.
But she's very anxious to make sure that Fritz Nyland gets on the map, too, here.
That is the point right there. That is her whole thing. To make things all straight, there's no money being exchanged in anything like this. It's that Katie wants the recognition of her father, and that, which I don't blame her. And like we talk, and if I can, for a little bit, I can add to this, I'm more than grateful, because Fred was my friend, and I'll tell you how much of a friend he was. We went on a pass several times, quite a few times. we were in Washington, D.C., because we were stationed in Camp McCall, which was right back of Fort Bragg. And so we went up to Washington, D.C. to see the Washington Monument and see the sights. While we were there, we ran out of money. Well, Fred says, I want to send a telegram home to my folks, and maybe I'll get some money. Well, Fred, I says, I can't do that, because my folks were gone. I lived with my aunt and uncle, but I would never ask them for money. They gave me a great home, but that was it. So Fred I think he got $20 from his father and mother, sent back in a couple hours. Well, no, that finished our 3-day pass, and we went back to camp. Of course, I repaid him with my first pay. But that's the kind of a friend he was. I was always grateful that I was his friend, and I was his friend too. And so we kind of hit it off together, as the old saying goes.
Yeah, you know, when you get a movie like this, a very successful movie, of course it's controversial. You've added another dimension to the discussion. We have heard movie critics, some loved it, some hated it. We've heard young people, old people, psychologists, retired generals, and everybody else talk about this movie. But the media, of course, scrambles to get a new angle. And yours is the new angle. And I would like to have our viewers know right now about some of the calls you've had recently. First of all, I should say that, as you can easily see by this little conversation with Big John and the old conversation with the late Bob Venn when we did the show several years ago and so on, he's a walking newspaper. He has these memories, and many of these memories are right on the tip of his tongue. But now you're getting a few calls about this. You contacted the local media, and they mostly responded very well. But you had a recent call from People magazine. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've had 2 phone calls from People's Magazine, a reporter from People's Magazine. How come they get my name and address? Of course, they first talked to Katie, who was Fritz's daughter, oldest daughter, and then she gives them. She can tell all about his family life, because so she grew up as his daughter. But then they want to know about his military life. Well, when they ask that question, she simply says, she gives them my phone number and my name. And so,
Dr. John.
Yeah, and so then tomorrow at this time, because yesterday I had a phone call from CBS in New York City, and they will be here tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Now let's date ourselves. First of all, I should tell viewers that this program is aired sometime after we actually tape it. So we're here on, what is today? The 5th, Calvin, the 5th of August. So on the 6th of August, CBS News will be here from New York.
Yeah, that's what they called me yesterday and made an appointment with me, yeah.
That's an interesting story, because the young reporter, you told him where you were. Tell me that story.
Well, all the reporter, Matt anyhow, he all he had was my name and my phone number. So he said, "Oh, where do you live and what's your address?" So I told him, 6 Cedar Lane, Plattsburgh, New York. And I heard a whoa. I said, "What happened?" He says, "I went to school in Burlington, Vermont." And he says, "In my school days, and I used to go to Plattsburgh on Saturday night." So he says it's going to be like old home week. So I'm quite anxious to see him, and I think he'd like to get back to Plattsburgh
That'll
again.
be interesting. And I'll bet you Katie will be extremely grateful for this extra publicity. You'll have to let us know what her reaction is, too.
When after tomorrow, I will call Katie, and we will talk. And Gordy, then I will call you and let you know.
Well, we always have to have the next chapter. I came back from a little camping trip, and there was a message on my machine called Big John, and I had an idea what it might be all about. I'm so delighted that we get together with you today. John, let me ask you, do you have a photograph that includes Fritz?
Fritz Nyland?
Yeah.
I sure do.
I knew we'd be getting to that. We'll take a look at it if you don't mind in just a moment. Let's back up a little bit over here. Now, we've got that picture of your unit frozen on the screen there, and you can see several people in the picture. The one on the left, and that, as you showed it to me before, is
The one on the
the one on the left side of the picture is
that's Fritz Nyland.
Okay, and then you're over right over on the right-hand
I'm,
side.
I'm just one person between him and I.
Okay.
And yeah.
Just want people to know that that you were very familiar with each other, standing almost next to each other right here.
Right.
And as you told us before, you were sitting right next to him on the bunk when the bad news came,
Yeah,
right?
I sure was.
All right, now move that other picture that you have in your hand over here and explain this whole thing to me.
This picture here was in about a week ago in the Syracuse newspaper, and the top picture is Bob Nyland, that was the other paratrooper in the 505 that got killed, and this is his other brother that came in on the beach that was killed. That's two of his brothers. Of course, the other brother that was shot down over China, that didn't have his picture. This is a cousin of him, but these are the two boys in Normandy that got killed of the Nyland family.
So how did you happen to get a copy of this newspaper? You heard about it?
I guess a lot of people know me. And
no, you got a few friends, John. Huh?
No, this paper here now came from friends in Ogdensburg, sent it to me, because I checked with Plattsburgh news stores. Syracuse paper does not come as far as Plattsburgh, but it does come as far as Ogdensburg. So my phone call to Ogdensburg and said, send me a paper. And so this is how come I have that.
John has a habit of collecting memorabilia, that time period and other time periods too, but it's fun to be surrounded with your memories, isn't it, huh?
Yeah, when I don't get depressed, because I don't let myself get depressed, because I think of the good things of life. When I wake up in the morning and the sun's shining, I talk to the man up there and say, hey, thanks a bunch.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, that's the way to do it. Today is today, right?
Today's today. Because as an airborne soldier, a paratrooper, you lived on a pretty sharp edge. You were here now, in 5 seconds you could be gone. And if you didn't believe in this or think this, then you were thinking wrong. Now, I've been asked questions, Gordy, about why did I do such a thing? Well, that was patriotism in those days. And that's what I did. I volunteered to be a paratrooper.
You know, there's a word that seems to take on different meanings for different people, but it was one of the most important words in your language, and still is, isn't it?
It sure is. Our training, we had a full colonel, Colonel Howard Johnson. He was a great leader, and for physical ability, and not only to make you physically strong to fight the enemy, but mentally strong too. And he did that. Now, this was a small unit, just one regiment, 2,200 men, full strength. But he was a leader. He was no shortcut to that man. He was such a leader that up in Holland, after Normandy, he was up on the front lines. Now, a full colonel is not supposed to be on the front lines. You get your reports back at the headquarters. But Colonel Johnson, he had to be up where the boys were. Consequently, a shell came in and he got killed. But the last thing he said before he died, he said to Colonel Ewell, who took command again, who also a friend of mine, he says, take care of my boys. And he died. So,
isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
What a story.
So when you've got a leader, it takes you through training, physically and mentally training. So when you go out that plane door over France in Normandy, the Germans are shooting at you and all hell's breaking loose and all that. You're there. You're doing what you volunteered to do. And when you volunteered, you've got nobody to blame but yourself. Don't go to your neighbor or your next buddy because he volunteered too. So there you are in Normandy. Like I say, bullets are flying around and guys are getting killed. And you don't know. The next one could be you. But you don't think about that. That's way back in the memory book. Your thing is, you've got a job to do, and let's get that job done. And you had to take some territory, capture some towns, and that had to be the job. So,
well, let me set these pictures down for one moment, John, and then I want to talk to you about how your unit, your regiment, actually fit into that whole scenario in Normandy, because we have to remember there are a lot of people who were not there. We were around during that time period, but a lot of people may not have read this in their history books. So let's bring them up to date. What was the whole plan, and how did you actually fit into it?
Well, of course, the thing was, World War II, the Allied forces that went in through North Africa, they took care of that job and drove Hitler out of there, drove General Rommel out of that. Then they jumped into Sicily, and then into Italy, and that. So that part of what they call the belly of Europe, our armies had conquered that. So then came the going in the top way, and so General Eisenhower and his staff engineered that project, which was D-Day of Normandy invasion. And so it was an enormous undertaking. Now, I have read stories. I mean, yes, I was there, but all I know is airborne, but we had Navy there. Of course, we had the Air Force, which takes the Air Force to get us there, and then regular Army and the Seabees, and we had everything together to make this invasion. And it took us all to do the job. Everybody had their own special job to do, and we did it. But now the 501 Parachute Regiment, which I was in, our job was to land behind the beaches. And now there's causeways behind the beach. That's like a bridge, a ground bridge, earthen bridge, that controls the flooding of the country and all that kind of stuff, which they did some of that too. But our job was to secure these causeways, because then when the tanks came in on the beach, then after they got past the beach, they didn't want to be mired down in a swamp. So we secured these causeways, so it gave them a passageway to get to the inner lands of Normandy. And so that was our first initial job. Well, they told us that was going to be it. But what happened, there was a storm came on the English Channel, and that raised heck with the landings, and they couldn't get the people, the more GIs and all that kind of stuff in there. So we were already there. So then they started using us. Well, we went down and took the city of Carentan. That was an added feature to it, but that was the thing. We were there, and might just well use us as they're sitting around. We had to earn our money somehow, and so we did that. And then we took the land or ground beyond Carentan certain ways. I forget just how much it was, but then we held that till they got more troops come across the beaches, and then they relieved us. And then they sent us up near Cherbourg to send us back to get more equipment, and. But we jumped on the 6th of June, and then I think it was the 10th of July, they sent us back. Now, when they sent us back, they put us on a ship, and we went back to England on a ship. They didn't fly us back. And so old paratroopers on a ship, that sure felt funny. But but it was, but we were going back to what you call safety. Our mission was over with. You could take a deep breath and say this. But we also knew we were going back to get re-equipped for another jump. We knew that. But this is another humorous thing. There were several times after Normandy, during the later part of July and August, we got warnings to go for a combat jump. But what happened? They got canceled. Because General Patton and these tanks was going so fast across Europe, they couldn't catch up with them. And if they had an area that they wanted us to jump on, by the time we get ready to jump, General Patton was already there.
He'd be out of there, yeah.
So it was, I thank General Patton for doing that, because then we didn't have to jump. But then many days later, when we were encircled in Bastogne, and General Patton got there and got relief to us, and we got ammunition, food, and some more replacements, and we beat the Germans again there. But it took the whole picture to win the war. But I'm glad that I had a little bit to do with it. Not very much, but it was the friends I met in OLC company or in the 501st Parachute Regiment. You know, we have a reunion every year. This past June, we were down at Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. This is, I think, humorous because there was one old trooper there that he had his great-grandchildren there. He wanted them to know what Gramp did. And so those one of the boys was about 20 years old, and his father was Lenny Morris. His grandfather was Lenny Morris, who was a buddy of mine in H Company. And he says, I'm so glad that my mother made me come, because now I know what Gramp did. And so, but then I've said, many times I've said, oh, paratroopers, we don't shake hands, we hug each other, because every day is a bonus day. And we don't have to talk to each other about what happened then. Although we do a lot, we reminisce and shoot the baloney, bat the breeze, and things like this. But it's a big happy family today. What's the remnants of World War II 501st Parachute Regiment. It's like you say, it's what's left. Now the magazine I get down here, Screaming Eagle, I get that every 2 months. And the one part of it that I don't like to look at is the obituaries, because, well, I know my name isn't in it, but I know that there's going to be people in there I do know. And so, but this magazine, it keeps us up to date on everything that's going on. And so, because the 101st Airborne right now is still active. They're in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Only thing I know about it is what I read in that magazine. But they're a combat-ready unit. They use a lot of gliders, not gliders, but helicopters this day and age, which we didn't have, and all that. In the last 50 years, there's been a lot of changes, which is great. You know, the 101st was involved in Saudi Arabia. Hey, I was glad to read about them. I just said, go get them, boys. I mean, what I'm trying to say is the 101st is still an active unit. But no, I have talked to, in different reunions, they do have some of the guys that are in the active 101st come to some of our reunions. And one thing I've been told, these younger fellas says, what a hell of a rule book you wrote. Because
you wrote the book, didn't
you? There was nobody ahead of us. We wrote the book, and because now they've got to follow it. So that's the only thing they complain about, that we wrote a hell of a book. But
I think I ought to say that the reason there are so many stories and so many memories from that relatively short period of time is because it was such an intense time in our history. It's not like the leisurely life many of us live today. We lived that leisurely life of freedom, relatively free of the threat of war, because you wrote the book. And the point I wanted to make is that was such an intense time, we could just take that one day, as we have today, that one day of the invasion, and how many stories have been written? Thousands and thousands from every person's point of view who was there, including yours.
Because I could be standing where we were standing now, 20 yards away from me, or from where we're standing. That's another story. It's another outlook, a different situation. I put together a little book for some of my actions of World War II, and that, which, Gordy, I'll give you one.
Great.
It's one instance that I wrote about. It was in Normandy, after we took Carentan, when we were out beyond Carentan, outside there, and we were attacking, and then the Germans counterattacked us and all this, and they were throwing in some mortar shells and this. So I was talking to Sergeant Terrell and two other guys. They were sitting under a big tree, kind of getting their breath, relaxing a little bit. Somebody hollered to me, Bacon, you're wanted back to company headquarters. So that's a couple of hedgerows back. So I went back, and don't ask me today what they wanted, but whatever it was, I must have done it. And so because you don't say no to an officer. You only say one thing. Yes, you say yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And so probably 20 minutes, half hour, I went back up to where this big tree and Sergeant Terrell and the 2 boys or 3 boys were sitting under it. Lo and behold, an artillery shell or a mortar shell or German shell landed in a tree, and they were all dead. And so I just looked at that, and I just simply said, I guess it's not my day and not my time. Thank the Lord, and away I went. And so
That's what you have to do every day of your life.
Yeah.
Not my day, not my time.
yeah, but I had
Whoa, what a story.
I had a lot of close ones. Walking, just outside Carentan again, walking down a dirt gravel road, German mortar shell landed, and the stones flew all over. Well, one stone hit me right in the side of the nose, broke my nose, and of course blood was flying all over everything. And there was a medic there somewhere. I don't know where he was, but anyhow, he showed up and wiped it. And he looked at my nose, and my nose was all crooked. He grabbed it and straightened it back up, which it's straight now. And
Wow.
he put a big piece of tape across it, and he says, "You're on your way." So about 20 minutes or so later, it was getting dusk, and Captain Cody, he was lieutenant then of H Company, and he saw me coming in the dusk, and he says, "Bacon, do something. Put some dirt on that tape. You look like a headlight coming down the road." But anyhow,
My.
but my nose is straight and all this. I got a little scar on the side of it, but hey, that was just, I mean, the old saying goes, didn't even slow me down. But
I love it. We're here today. I'll tell you what we want to do. We want to start a little tour around this room. We've done it before. You and I did it on the radio. You've done it on television shows. You'll do it again tomorrow when CBS comes here. But I want people to know some of the stories that are connected with the pictures and some of the other memories that we might evoke by looking at things in this room. We'll continue our show with Big John in just a moment. The images in the background, as John and I have been talking, each have special memories and stories connected with them. John, let's start at the fireplace here. You go over and reach up for that shell over here and tell me what that's all about. People wouldn't even know it was a shell till they looked at the bottom of it.
look at the bottom. It's a 20 millimeter shell from a British tank. But this was a battle in Holland in the town of Eerde, and the battle was the sand dunes. And this Dutchman picked these shells up after the war. He cut them off and made a little cross out of them. Of course, it's solid brass, so it doesn't rust or anything, so I keep it polished. But the thing is, it came from a battlefield that I was involved in. And then behind that, this here, there's one on the other side too. This is a replica of the 101st Airborne Monument in Arlington Cemetery, Washington, D.C. As you can see, it's a Jim Beam whiskey bottle. But I have 2 of them.
That makes it special all by itself,
Well,
right?
and they're both full.
Yeah.
And this is from Veckel, a village in Holland, and it says on the bottom, Veckel, the second home of the 101st Airborne Division. And so
You have friends over there.
I got super friends over there. Yes.
Best.
Yes, I'll give a little story because my wife and I have been over there. We stay with this Dutch family in Hees, Holland, which is just below Eindhoven. And it was almost impossible to try to beat them. They go to dinner to try to get to the maitre d' to pay the bill. They seem to be ahead of me all the time. So I said to Jeannie one time, "I'd like to pay a bill." And she looked at me just as straight as an eye. And she says, "You can't pay a bill here," because she says, 50-some years ago, you paid the bill then.
Isn't that beautiful? That's what friends are for. All right, what else have we got here?
And this is my 45. I carried it on my hip. And, of course,
There was a friend, right?
there was a friend. Yes, it got used. And right now the firing pin's gone, taken out. The barrel is full of lead, and it's all submerged in polyurethane. But the story behind I got this, of course I carried it, it was mine. It was not a GI issue, it was my own personal weapon. When you get shot to the point that you can't move, then that's when you head for the hospital. And then I got my knee blown apart. There was a guy from Theresa, New York, over near Watertown there.
Sure.
Well, old Rob Houston was right there. And I said to Bob, if you ever make the show, that means if you ever get home, bring this home to me. So then away I went on a stretcher. So 1947, he came to Ogdensburg, handed me that in a paper bag.
Isn't that a great story?
So he was not only he was a great paratrooper, a gentleman, and my friend. Yeah. So that's it. This, of course, this is a beer mug, which it has my name on it, and this is Normandy Veterans Association. This is a English association. This came from England, a friend of mine, and so, but of course I'm involved in that because I was there. The plate up there, that is from Holland. That's a gift like that. And of course through the,
that says, I should say that says 1944 to 1994, and that's when we last saw you for the interview. What, by the way, wasn't there a Dutch family here?
There sure was.
When we were here, tell me a little bit about them and how they're doing.
Well, Theo and Jeannie and their son Leon.
They're the ones you were just talking about.
Yeah, they were just talking about them. They doing fine. Theo we stay in contact because there's a telephone, and you can pick up the phone and call Holland, and just watch out that the difference in time that you don't
for more than an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, but they're doing fine and all that. We were there a year ago. A year ago now, we were there, and what I wanted to do last year, which we did, I've seen everything in Holland and Belgium that was military connected, like Bastogne and all that. I wanted to see Holland as a country. Well, they set up a program, and they certainly did that. We went to cheese factories, and they have big ones. The cheese markets, the little pubs or little places in the corner where you can stop in on a warm afternoon and have a cool one, and all this kind of stuff. We saw Queen Wilhelmina's castle. Queen Wilhelmina, of course, was the Queen of Holland during World War II, and she escaped during the occupation of the Germans and came to Ottawa, Canada. And after that, she gave Canada, the city of Ottawa, all the tulips. That's why every spring they have a tulip festival there. Well, of course, she is gone now, but we spent a day going through that castle, Wilhelmina Castle. It was something that's of this world, and but it was. My question was to somebody of authority there, why is this so perfect? The Germans were here for about 6-7 years. The answer to that is, yes, the Germans had their headquarters in that castle. But along came the paratroopers, and that was so quick, they dragged their fannies out of there in a hurry because they left everything as it was. So I got to give us guys a little credit there. That we hurried them up.
Down on them, didn't you?
So it, another thing that's, this is a can of beer. This was Market Garden beer, and Market Garden was the code name for the operation in Holland that when we jumped in Holland with the British and the Polish Brigade in the 82nd and 101st. So in '94, for their 50th year of liberation, there's the parachutes on it and all this kind of stuff, and Market Garden beer. I presume that's worth quite a bit of money, but I'm not going to open it.
No, don't open it. No. Save that, baby. These are a lot of great golden memories here. Everywhere you look, thousands and thousands of things. It must be comforting just to sit in this room, John.
Yes, it is. Like I've said before, I don't get depressed. If you have a couple of days it's raining, well, for some unknown reason, I have quite a lot of correspondence to do. Letter writing.
I can understand
and
that.
So I do that then. But like today is so nice and all that. Well, maybe this afternoon I'll cut my grass. I got more of my hedge I've got to get trimmed up some of these days. And so my doctor in the VA, he's quite a guy, and he told me one thing, because I do have some arthritis in both knees. That's from a result of that jumping over that plane, that sudden stop. But
that could do it.
And but all the doctors tell me, don't stop, John, because if you stop, you'll get rusty. So don't get rusty.
Like the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
huh?
So
Well, let's look a little bit more around this room. You were telling me, let's go over here a little bit, John, and talk about right down here. Now, this is, I mean, you know, we think about Big John, tough guy, patriot, Second World War veteran, automobile mechanic, able to handle any situation. But needlepoint? Isn't this incredible? Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, that is a linen towel, and it's from England, because the parachute regiment, that was the parachute regiment in England. That they jumped in Holland with us, and due to the fact that they had a bad time, and there's one girl, Ernie Sedgwick, who lives in Darlington, England, was my friend. He claims that I saved his life. Well, I can't prove I did or I didn't, but if Ernie says so, I'll take credit for it. So he gave me that, or his wife gave me that towel. It just had a print on it, and I did all the needlework on it. But when you're sitting there not doing nothing, it's a good pastime. And when you get all done, well, I'm kind of proud of my work. I mean, I'm patting myself.
It's beautiful.
I'm patting myself on the back and all that, but it keeps you out of mischief and off the streets.
All right, let's move over to this corner.
Oh.
As he's showing a picture of a drawing. There's a story behind that.
In 1945, when I got back from Europe, I was in a hospital in Lowell General Hospital, Fort Devens, Massachusetts. A USO girl came in with her pencil and pad, and she drew that picture of me. Well, I kept it, and then I framed it because I like it because I got hair in that picture. And
It's a good drawing.
I think it's a very good drawing. And
What's this outfit up here now?
the picture at the top, that is the 501st Parachute Regiment, complete. There's 2,200 men in that picture. Now, somewhere way over to my left, that's the 3rd Battalion way over there. I'm over in that group there somewhere. I'm there because I remember when the picture was taken.
You think Nyland would be in there?
Oh yeah. This is before we went to. No, Fritz would be in there. Yeah, but that is the whole 501 regiment there. Yeah.
That's how many men?
2,200, 2,200 men. That makes a parachute regiment. And of course, now down below that is Camp Toccoa, Georgia. That's up in the northern part of Georgia, or up in the hills. They put us up there because we were one little camp. The buildings were just single boarded buildings with tar paper on the roof and tar paper on the side. And the old saying goes, the winds used to blow through the knot holes in the doors. And it was, it kept you dry when it was raining. But that old red Georgia clay, that sure stuck to your feet. But that was Camp Toccoa, Georgia. And as far as the 501, that's where it all started. That's the beginning.
And a lot of medals over here in the corner.
That's my medals there. There's a few that isn't up there, but that's most of them. I'm kind of proud of that too. There's a Bronze Star certificate, and then a couple of awards for the VF Veterans of Foreign Wars, and like that, which I'm a life member, as well as American Legion, a life member of that, and the Disabled American Veterans, and that I support all the organizations.
You've stayed really active. What else have we got in this room that might be interesting? Just walk with me and explain to. Oh, here I see you got a. We thank you for our freedom over here on the side. Calvin's going to follow us, and this is something very interesting. Let me get over next to you, and you point this out and tell me about it.
Thank you for our freedom. This is the mayor's house in the town of Eindhoven. And this was given to us when we were over there, and he just simply said, "We thank you for our freedom." That means the Dutch people. And this is a picture of their home in Holland. Now next to it is a windmill.
Oh, you got to tell me that story again. I love this story.
This windmill, this picture, I think I know I'm the only person in the United States has got it one, because there was only one picture, and it was in a museum. Well, my friend Theo from Holland, he took the picture. He got permission to take the picture out of the museum, had a copy made, and sent it to me.
And there's a very good reason why that picture is cherished because you can't take a picture like that anymore.
No, because that windmill doesn't have any more top on. The Germans blew it off. Yeah, yeah. It's one of a kind. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat. Well, you got so many other things. You have a salute to our American veterans, never to be forgotten. Boy, there's a lot of memories right there and a lot of familiar faces, huh? All the way around.
This is World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Yeah. And, could I read you a little poem?
I wish you would.
The name of it is Reunion. I see their faces etched in memories of the years. The big war left us scars from the blood and tears. Comrades of battle who fought side by side. Those who standing watched others as they died. Now I see their hands clasped. Those who gather still as one to recall the days of war long over but never done. Men who faithfully served and who vigilantly remember, relieving each other every battle, Bastone's cold December. I saw them as young men in shiny boots and soaring high, eagles who rode the clouds and dropped from the sky. I did not see them on the battlefields or in the foxholes where they lied, nor did I hear the cries of pain, only to know I prayed. I did not see them as they fought in the snow and the rain so far away, but I remember them as gallant ones before their hair turned gray. The roster does not read the same, each year the list more thin, but their courage and their valor sympathize those great men, Toccoa, McCall, Bragg. Training was hard and tough. Yet they built a regiment that was full of grit and tough. In Veckel, St. Comte-de-Mont, and Carentan, hedgerows, orchards, dikes, men who faced the enemy and won. Oh, I see the faces grow older, but I know their spirit is still the same. Though their grit is slow, sons who hear the stories listen in awe and with pride as they watch the reunion of men who stood side by side. My heart swells even bigger while I was standing near to see them come together year after year. So many went to war to defend the rights of man, and so many stayed behind in the soil of forgotten land, of a foreign land, pardon me. There were white crosses marked their graves. At home, mothers mourned, hoping someone would place flowers for the boys they had born. Men who shared their foxholes where they feared, yet they were bold. Today they share their stories, ever so many times retold. As I hear their voices laughing in the crowd, I'm reminded just why it is they stand so proud. In history it is written, the records we read through, they carried the banner bravely, the 501 of World War II. Now, America, do not forget these men who fought for us. The USA, perhaps arenas where battles were waged, will become silent someday.
That's a wonderful poem written by somebody called Alta Claire K. Morgan.
Yeah. Her husband was Bill Morgan. He was a captain. He was in H Company for a small. He was in the 2nd Battalion F Company first, and then he came to H Company for a very short time, and then he finished out the war as the commander of I Company. And Bill is gone now. He died a few years ago, natural causes. I knew him very, very well, both during the war and after the war and at the reunions. This is his wife wrote this. But Bill, there's nobody in this world could ever say a bad word about the man. He was tough and he was rough, but he was honest and he was square.
That's a great poem. I love it. Now, just a cursory look around here. A few more things on this side of the room that we want to mention. I noticed before there were even stones on the fireplace, and you were telling me they came from different places you had been.
Yeah, the stones on the fireplace are from Toccoa, Mount Currie, Wisconsin, Bastogne, and in Holland and Normandy. I got a little stone and I write on each one of them.
What a neat idea.
Yeah, but
you touch the stone and you can go back there in your brain, right?
My brain, yeah.
Yeah, all right. What do we got up here?
Well, up in the corner it says "Return from Hell."
Over here.
Yeah, well, that's Korea. I spent 14 months in that country. Like I say, I was, after coming back from World War II, getting my knee busted up and all that, but I'm still walking, and so I got a letter saying that Uncle Sam wanted me. So
Hey, Marion, I'm going.
It was by being a former master sergeant and my experiences, and that was what they needed in Korea at that time. So that's a whole nother ball game. But then now the pictures to the over the corner of that eagle there, the rendezvous with destiny. I made that cross stitch, and then this picture here, that eagle there, that's a cross stitch. I did that.
Marvelous.
The big Marion made that.
Did you really?
And now that's just an airborne picture. Gordy, over.
Very important.
Very important.
Very, very important.
This is part of the parachute that I jumped in Normandy with.
Wow.
Because when I landed, in my story, I'm going to give you that little book. I went over a barn, and then I landed on the ground, but my chute partially hung in a tree. But I landed on the ground with no problems. And because I cut myself out of my chute harness and like that. So for some reason, don't ask me why, unexplainable, I made a big slash. I cut that piece out and stuck it in my pocket. So it stayed in my pocket. So of course I got back to England, and I sent it to my aunt where I lived in Augsburg. And so I got home, and she gave it back to me. She says, "I think you would want that." So yes, I did. So that is part of my parachute that I jumped in Normandy
That's what
with.
it's all about, right there.
Right there.
Between that and your sidearm over there.
Yeah.
Those are two very important parts of this whole memory picture.
Whole thing, yeah. And this brass things like this, this day and age, my wife and I, we like to go to garage sales. In Florida, where we live for 6 months, you don't have a lot to do because we have a condo there, and you don't have to cut the grass, and you don't have to paint the house or nothing. So we go to garage sales, and so odd things of brass collection I pick up. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's just a little hobby or something, but that's why you see the brass.
This is a wonderful room. You have renewed a lot of the memories. I was a little boy during that time period where you were jumping on Normandy. I was only, about 7 years old, but I have my own special memories from listening to Walter Winchell and all the ships at sea and all the stories back home, and that little old radio that sat on top of that little old Philco refrigerator in our kitchen on the news every night. John R. Murrow and those guys who were the reporters over there. But you have revived a very special time in American history. I can't say that often enough. And as we end our program here today, John, I want to reiterate our main purpose for being here, besides renewing our acquaintance, was to refresh the world's memory of Fritz Nyland because of this movie, and to help his daughter and the rest of the country build that image up a little bit so they know where this whole story came from, right?
Right, Gordy. That's the purpose of you and I getting together today. Fritz was my friend, my buddy, soldier in arms, anything you want, anything and however you want to say it. He was there. There was nothing I wouldn't do for him or he wouldn't do for me. Our relationship, like I've said before, through World War II and then after Normandy they sent Fritz home, which, like I've stated before, I'll say again, all the guys in each company, we were glad that Fritz was going home. We were not glad the fact that he lost 3 brothers, but Fritz was the guy that we knew, and he was going home. So that was it. But I know this for a fact. I'm stating something that's out of the blue. Of all the guys in H Company, I'm the only one that stayed in contact with him after the war. Although during the reunions, he's talked about, well, yes, I mean, this situation that this movie now early in June when we went to Fort Mitchell, Kentucky for our reunion. This was talked about and all that, and it was commonly said then, I wonder how far off the truth they're going to get. But as we did, but it still boils down to the one thing. We were there, Fritz was there, I was there, and now there's a movie about it.
There was a book and then a movie, but you guys wrote the book. You wrote the rule book, right?
Yeah, and I'm I'm glad that I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still here to talk about it and to tell the story in my little bit to help old Fritz. I know he's up there looking down and says, give him hell, but anyhow, he was a great soldier, and I am glad that in a way that this is being brought about, and then once again about Mr. Spielberg's movie, it brings out the fact of what we did. But I got to add one more thing. This search they had for Private Ryan. Well, yes, I know the 101st Airborne, we were spread out because the German ack fire spread the airplanes out, and we were spread all over the place. But we did our job. We took the towns. We won the country. We took the territory we were supposed to do. Maybe we didn't do it in battalion sizes. We did it in plane load sizes, 15, 20 guys at a bunch. Because our training, like I said before, Colonel Johnson was tough. I'm glad he was tough, because that made us that way. I can say this for myself. Physically, my condition myself, I was never in better shape than I was when I jumped in Normandy and into Holland and Bastogne. My physical endurance, that was the strongest part of my life. Of course, I was in my early 20s. That makes a difference too.
That helps a lot, John.
But as I said, I mean, this is, as I said, I still got it up here, but the old legs don't work like they used to.
Never mind. As long as that mouth works and you can tell that story, I know you will to the day you die. John,
I will.
I want to thank you so much for your hospitality, inviting our little corner and Hometown Cable into your home once again to renew those friendships and to give the story one more chapter, the last chapter. I'll bet you there'll be more chapters. What do you think?
I'll never bet against you. I'll bet with you.
Well, as long as the invitation is out, we'll come back again, if nothing for a good cup of coffee and a little conversation.
Hey, that's the name of the game.
Big John Bacon, the North Country's proud, and we're proud of you. Thanks again.
I thank you, Gordy.
And go ahead.
And thank you for what you've done for me on TV, and your coming to my house here, and be grateful to let me talk and get out to the public. I mean, I know, and I want everybody else to know, because there's other people in this world that did just as much as I did, but I was just a little bit of a part of it, that's all.
That's great. Well, you're a jumper, I'll tell you that. And who knows where we're going to be next time for the program called Our Little Corner.